Buying a new build home in the UK is a huge moment for some people. For some, it could be a couple buying their very first home. For a family, it could be buying their forever house. And we've all seen the dedicated Instagram pages where people have accounts dedicated to their home, buying items in places like B&M, Home Bargains and The Range, and seeing how nicely they can decorate it. But what if I told you that buying a new build house in the UK is not a smart thing to do? You're actually paying a huge premium compared to other sized houses in the area. And you're also missing out on a huge value tax-free gain opportunity. Buying an older house that needs a refurbishment means that you can negotiate a great price on the property and buy it below market value, and then use that money that you've saved to put in a brand new kitchen and a brand new bathroom, and all of the value increase on the house when you've finished is completely tax-free. It's a great way for young people starting out to jump up the property ladder, and it's known as house hacking in the US. It's a great strategy and a great way to build a bigger pot of money to buy a bigger house in the future. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name's Matt. I work for a bank by day, I invest in property on the side, and on this channel we explore all things money, finance and property investing to help people lead a more financially savvy life. If you haven't already, then please consider subscribing to the channel to help finesse your financial wisdom. So firstly, let's look at some of the pros of buying a new build house. Now firstly, and the main thing, is that it's a brand new house that no one has ever set foot in. The carpets are fresh, the paint is still drying on the walls, the turf is still half unrolled on the grass, and that's one thing that is really hard to achieve when you're buying an older house. Another great thing is that usually with the bigger house builders, if you buy early enough before the house is built, you can choose the carpets, you can choose the kitchen, and kind of get a rough colour scheme going within the house and choose that all up front. And they do offer some kind of extra additional costs as well for more premium kitchens, for example. And lastly, you can live in a beautiful brand new estate that's pristine, clean, where everyone else around you is also going through a very similar experience, which means you'll bond with your neighbours a lot better. Now let's cover some of the cons of buying a new build house. So the first thing is that you will notice that houses are these big, complex things that do cost a lot of money to build. Now there are going to be a lot of defects, and a lot of the big house builders have defect and warranty periods, which is fine, but it means that you'll have to get used to things like settlement cracks, poor workmanship, dodgy and cheap materials that the bigger house builders use. And what's really interesting, when you look at the standard or minimum standard of houses in the UK, house builders only build just above that minimum line. So you're not going to get some kind of quality house that you'll see on Grand Designs. They're very cheap and they just meet minimum compliance. Secondly, you are definitely going to be paying a premium for the brand new build. Now, if you look at a 3-bed house in a particular area, you'll notice that the new houses and the new builds are a lot more expensive than the current older builds and existing houses. This is because you always pay a premium for this, and it means that when the market changes, if the market goes down or you have a very high loan to value mortgage, you could end up being in negative equity very quickly because the value of the house goes below what you've then paid for it and what the bank at that point thought was a fair value. And thirdly, if you're buying off plan, this comes with a huge risk. Now, I experienced this firsthand when I bought my new build flat, and on the floor plans and when I was deciding which flat to choose, I was shown a floor plan with 2 balconies. And then many months later, after we had exchanged the contracts, I went to go and see the flat for the very first time, walked around, and the first thing I said to the house builder was, "Where's the second balcony? There's just a window there." And I realised at that point that someone had made a huge mistake. Whether that was me or them is the question. Now let's talk about some of the pros and cons of an old build house and why I personally think an old build is better. And now I've been living in a new build flat for 2 years, why it's been great, but I also regret it at the same time. So one of the main pros of an old build is the fact that you can get a cheaper property, especially if it's in an unloved condition. And let's say it's got a very old kitchen and a very old bathroom. Some people don't want that, they just want to move into a house ready-made, and that's great. But if you can find a house like that, you can negotiate a great price, bring the price down, and then that saving that you make, you can then spend on the refurbishment, which is then going to increase the value more in the property than what you spent on the refurb. So you should have extra equity within the property. Now, this could be a very light refurb, and that's all you need to do, but you could also go for a huge project and go for a heavy refurbishment. And if you speak to a mortgage broker, there are actually dedicated products available for this. So rather than just getting a standard residential mortgage to begin with, you could get some form of development finance first, and then use that cash to completely rip all of the walls out, and you could literally rebuild the entire house, change where the stairs go, you could change the layout of all the rooms, and you could literally make it your own complete custom home on the inside, and banks would lend you the money to do that. And then once you've got the value uplift on the property, what you do is you refinance that property, and then you pull out all of the extra value that you've made through the refurbishment, and that pays for the deposit, and then you should have some left over as well. And the main thing is that property that's owned in your own name that you live in full time, if you do a refurbishment on it, all of that value increase is completely tax-free, so there's no capital gains tax on a property that you live in and gain value from. This means it's a great way for brand new people on the property ladder and first-time buyers to really start jumping up that property ladder, because you can buy an old house, you can do it up, realise the value, and then you've got way more cash to then use on a bigger property, do the same again, buy a bigger property, and do the same again. And not many people realise this. Now, when I was younger, I stayed in the same house for all of the 20 or so years until I then moved out. However, some people do move around every 3 or 4 years, and they buy an old house, they build a big extension on the back of it, re-render the house and make it beautiful, live in it for a year or two and enjoy it, and then they move and start all over again. But in the process, they've made £100,000 tax-free, and it's a great way to build up a bit of a nest egg for retirement as well. One of the cons of buying an old build property is that it, yes, is old, and that means that you could have big structural problems, there could be skeletons in the garden, you just don't really know what you're getting. So make sure you get a full building survey done, a very comprehensive one, so you know exactly what you're buying before you then purchase it. Some older buildings may have asbestos in them, which is very expensive to remove. You might find things like Japanese knotweed as well, that again is very expensive to remove. So it's not for the faint-hearted, and it is going to take a lot of time and effort, but the rewards are more than worth it. Personally, I've enjoyed living in a new build flat. It's very clean, it's very nice, and it's great to have everything kind of crispy and fresh when you move in, and the fresh house smell is something that's very undescribable, but great at the same time. But for my next property and for any others, I would definitely buy an older property and completely redo it. And actually, if you speak to an architect, you could completely revamp the front of a house and make it look like a new build, as well as then ripping out all the walls on the inside and redoing it from the ground up. So there's a lot you can do in a property, and again, all of that value is completely tax-free. It's a complete no-brainer for me moving forwards. At the end of the day, it's totally up to you. New builds can be fantastic, they're very expensive, but there are pros and cons to having a new build, and there are pros and cons to buying an older house and then doing it up, and it depends on your personal preferences and what you want to do. I hope you found this video useful and inspiring when you're looking for your next home or house to live in. If you like this video, I've got loads of others just like this one here. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.